Okay, vino madunayno heno aleno maase aldenu kone na leno maase aldenu konenu. I'd like to dedicate this year today to memory of my father, Tzvi Hirsch ben Mordechai, Chadonai Tinechel Megan Eden. V'gam Nefesh, my father-in-law, Eliezer ben Yishayahu David Ruach Adonai Tinechel Megan Eden. V'gam Nefesh, Chatun Hana bat Mazam Miriam, Ruach Adonai Tinechel Megan Eden. So, I decided to give this shiur very short notice, given the absolutely wonderful news we heard about today. We began to hear about the news yesterday, but the confirmation didn't happen until this morning. And I wanted to quickly record my ideas on this momentous event and try to put it in the perspective of what's going on currently. And I didn't want to wait until later on, because then it would be after the day that we heard this wonderful news. So it's very important that we always have to remember that our service to Hashem and our commitments, to keep in mind the future, keep in mind where things are going. It says, a person has to know where you come from, and where you're going. A person has to always know where we're going. And we are clearly heading towards the redemption, and hopefully after this class, we'll be able to appreciate how close we are to the redemption and how it's really going to be very, very miraculous and very close to us. So in the parasha we read, Be'ezrat Hashem, the Shabbat, is Parashat Behar. It has a pasuk in there in chapter 25, verse number 38 in Leviticus. It says, Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hoseti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, latet lachem et eretz Canaan, liot lachem Elohim. So we see over here, Hashem is telling us, I am the Lord your God, that I took you out of the land of Egypt to give to you the land of Canaan. For what reason? Liot lachem Elohim, for you to have me as your God. Of course, that means that in order to stay in the land of Israel, that means we have to continually recognize that Hashem is Elohim. Hashem is the God, which basically means there is no other God, and Hashem is running the world completely. Even though the word Elohim means about nature, God runs nature. God is in charge of nature. And then if we look, there's another pasuk that's similar but not. In Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse number 21, it says, "Lema'an yirbu yimechem yimei merechem al ha'adama asher nishba Adonai la'avotechem latet lahem kimei hashamayim al ha'aretz." That, of course, is in the Kriyat Shema that we read at least twice a day. And it says, so that your years and the years of your children shall be multiplied on the land that God swore to give to your fathers, latet lahem kimei hashamayim ha'aretz. Which means, unlike the pasuk in Parashat Behar, where it's only talking about the Jewish people who are going into the land of Israel, using the word lachem, to you, here we see the pasuk is clearly saying lahem. Who's lahem over here? It's not talking about Bnei Yisrael only. It's talking about specifically about the Avot. Hashem give to them. And we understand that we read through all of Bereshit. What do we notice? When we read through all of Bereshit, we never see that Avraham, Yitzchak, or Yaakov inherited the land. And the Talmud, when it's discussing the concept of Tchiyat HaMetim min HaTorah, the resurrection of the dead from the Torah, where do we learn it from? It brings a number of Pisukim to try to learn where from the Torah we learn that the resurrection of the dead is mentioned. And the pasuk that the Gemara settles on in Masechet Sanhedrin is this pasuk from the Kriyat Shema, which basically means what? In order for because Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov never received the land in inheritance. They never received the land. They had to purchase the land. They didn't receive it in inheritance. Therefore, latet lahem means they have to come back in order to receive the land of Israel. Good afternoon. That's what it says in Devarim in the Kriyat Shema. We have it even more clearly in Devarim chapter 1, verse number 8. What does it say? Re'eh natati lifnechem et haaretz. See, I have given before you the land. Bo'u urshu et haaretz. Come and inherit the land. Asher nishba Adonai la'avotechem. That the Lord your God swore to your fathers, la'Avraham, la'Yitzchak, la'Yaakov, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, latet lahem ulzara'am acharehem. This pasuk is no doubt. This pasuk is very clear. It's mentioning that Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov have to return back to receive the land and to their children, which is, of course, this is a remez in the Torah for Tchiyat HaMetim. It's interesting that the Talmud doesn't settle on this pasuk. The Talmud doesn't even bring this pasuk in its long derivation of different pasukim to prove Tchiyat HaMetim is from the Torah. Perhaps that's because the first pasuk is in Kriyat Shema, which is something that every Jew knows very, very clearly. So as a person is reading the Kriyat Shema, especially the second paragraph at the end, we're affirming our understanding that the Tchiyat HaMetim is mentioned, the resurrection of the dead is mentioned in the Torah. Now, what the whole purpose of the redemption, why are we all looking forward to the Mashiach coming? What is the purpose of the redemption? The purpose of the redemption is to bring us to the Tchiyat HaMetim, the resurrection of the dead. The Mashiach in and of itself is not the end. The Mashiach is the beginning of the Messianic age, or when we could say we've been in the Messianic age for a while, say 2,000 years, that the Gemara says Yemei Mashiach has 2,000 years. But once the Mashiach comes, that is setting in pattern a series of events that will lead up to the resurrection of the dead, Tchiyat HaMetim, which is the ultimate goal of Avodat Hashem, the ultimate goal of serving Hashem. In addition to having a wonderful relationship with Hashem, the ultimate reward is not even in the world of the neshamot, is not in the world of the neshamot, of the souls of heaven. Why? Because that is also a temporary world. The world of the neshamot is temporary. That world ends when? In the resurrection of the dead. When there's the resurrection of the dead, what happens? All the neshamot in the shamayim, all the neshamot in Gan Eden, reoccupy their body in Olam Hazeh. This is the Jewish concept of Tchiyat HaMetim. And this is, of course, same body. Doesn't age. Doesn't age.
When the neshama leaves here and go upstairs, it stays until reunited, or
till it's reunited. The whole purpose of the Olam Haba, the purpose of Olam HaNeshamot is God decreed there's going to be death on the world, meaning what? There's going to be a separation between the body and the soul. Well, okay, we know what happens to the body. The body goes in the ground. Where is the soul going to go wait until the resurrection? That's in Olam HaNeshamot. Okay, that's a separate issue. There's a concept of Gilgul Neshamot where it can come back. There are examples of that. If a person did not fulfill their mission in this world, then sometimes they're given the option, sometimes they're not given the option to come back to this world and try to live again to fulfill the mission. That's the concept of Gilgul Neshamot. But there's a big difference between reincarnation and resurrection. Reincarnation, the body that the person comes into is destined to die. Resurrection, the body that the person comes into is not going to die. It's a big difference. The kli, the utensil of the resurrection is such that body will not decay and will not die and will not get old, which is an unbelievable thing. What does that have to do with what's going on now? So it says in Masechet Brachot, in 54a, Hayav Adam levarech al hara'a keshem shemevarech al hatova. It is required of a person to make a beracha on something that happens that is bad, in quotes, similarly to the way they make a bracha on something that good that happens. Why? Shene'emar, ve'ahatat Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha. What is b'chol levavecha? Levavecha in Hebrew is not one heart. It doesn't say libecha, it's levavecha. What does levavecha mean? Two hearts, correct. So the Gemara over here, what does it say? Two hearts? Bishnei yetzarecha, with the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer Hara. Ubechol nafshecha, afilu hu notelet nafshecha. What does it mean with your whole soul? Even when Hashem is taking away the neshama. B'chol meodecha, b'chol mamonecha. This we all know, that with all your meodecha is all your money. Davar acher. Now the Gemara brings another opinion. B'chol meodecha, b'chol midah umidah shehu moded lecha haveh modelo. With every midah that Hashem does, you should do like He does. So we understand from here that because we have Yetzer HaTov and Yetzer Hara, both of those are there for us to serve Hashem. We have to serve Hashem with the Yetzer HaTov, and we have to serve Hashem with the Yetzer Hara. So the Gemara over here is learning that just like a person has to make a bracha on something that is good, has to make a bracha on something that is bad. Why? Because the source of everything that happens in the world is Hashem. There is nothing bad we think of it as bad. It seems to be bad to us in the moment. But if we were able to step out and look at the scheme of things, we would realize that it's not actually bad. It was actually necessary and even good. So that's why a person who believes in one God has to recognize that everything comes from Hashem, what appears to be good and what appears to be ra'ah. So therefore, the Gemara is saying a person has to have bracha, just like on the tov, just like he makes on the ra. The example, of course, is when a person passes away bar minan, we say bracha. What's the bracha? Baruch Dayan Hamet. Why do we make a bracha? Because of what it says over here. Now, this same idea is brought in another place in the Talmud. It's brought in Masechet Pesachim. In Masechet Pesachim on 50a, it says, "V'haya Adonai lemelech hakol haaretz, bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shmo echad." And it will be and the Lord shall be king. Hashem will be king over all the earth. On that day shall Hashem's name be one and his name one. When is that pasuk talking about? Obviously, that pasuk is talking about the time of the Mashiach, right? Maybe not so much the future. It could be the present. We don't know yet, right? But as far as this is the Zman of the Mashiach, this is a messianic prophecy. This is from Zechariah chapter 14, verse number 9. So now the Gemara is going to comment on this pasuk. Amar Rabbi Acha bar Hanina, Rabbi Acha bar Hanina says, Lo ka'olam hazeh ha'olam haba. This world is not like the next world. Ha'olam hazeh. Now, when it says about olam hazeh and olam haba, it's not talking about olam haneshamot. You're going to see, based on how the Talmud is wording this, olam haba that's referred to here is the world to come, which is the world of the Mashiach and the world of the Tehiyah. So the Gemara says, Al besorot tovot in olam hazeh. On good news, what do we say? Baruch hatov vehametiv. Yes, that's what we do in this world, in olam hazeh, when there's a good thing that happens. Thou besorot ra'ot bar minan omer. And on bad news, we say, Baruch dayan ha'emet. Blessed is the true judge. La'olam haba. Now, what do you mean? Everything, again, we don't make a bracha when someone is sick, but the way we fulfill what the Talmud is saying is we make a bracha when somebody passes away. Yes?
I want to know, all of the neshama come to this world is new or the old one?
It's the same neshama.
No. For example, today, the baby born.
Most of the neshamot that come to the world now have been here before. No. Most of the neshamot that come to the world have been here before. You want to move this? I'm sorry about that. I should have done that when we started. Forgive me. I'm so sorry. Okay, so the idea there is... That's a good question. Here's the real answer. We have been doing Avodat Hashem for 3,500 years. Yes? Since the giving of the Torah on Har Sinai. What we're trying to do is correct all of the things that need to be corrected. And even though it seems that the world is a mess and everything is terrible, we have done a tremendous amount of correction in the world. We're almost at the end. And that's why there's small things that are left undone yet. Okay, there's very little. Obviously there's a concept of Mashiach in the world. There is not as many idol worshipers. There's nobody doing human sacrifices. There's a lot of things that we have brought to the world, tikkunim, corrections we brought to the world, that if you look 2,000 years ago, were very, very different. We're in the last stages. So therefore, we only need a few neshamot to come to clean up that part, because the majority of the work has already been done. Okay?
That's why it's like a rain of balagan. It's a rain, it's like the end.
That's Gog u'Magog. A rain of balagan. I like that. A rain of balagan. What's the balagan? Let's try to figure out after this class, what's the balagan? Because that's what we have to figure out, right? So in Olam Hazeh, we have this contrast. We have good news, we have bad news. You make a bracha for good news, you make a bracha for bad news. La'olam haba, this is not talking about the world of the souls. This is talking about the world of the resurrection, or the world of the Mashiach. Kulo hatov metiv. Even on besorot ra'ot, even on what we perceive to be bad news, we're going to say hatov ve'hametiv. Why is that? because we're going to have a perspective that we're going to understand that when something appears bad, it's not really bad. Continuing on, Ushmo Echad. My Echad, the Gemara says, what does it mean his name is going to be one? Atu Ha'idan Alav Shmo Echadu? Is it in this world his name is not one? What do you mean? Haya Adonai Bayom Ahu Ye Adonai Echad Shmo Echad. What does that mean?
Right now, there is people that fight it.
And what we see now is everybody has to choose. Nobody can I'm recording this, by the way. So if you want to, I'm recording on YouTube. It's going on YouTube Live. So if you want, I'll send you the link afterwards. You want to share with anybody or... Okay, that's okay too. Want to do that? That's fine. No objection. No objection. No problem. So it says over. So we what's going on right now? There is no middle. Everybody has to decide where they are standing. And what we're beginning to see, and that's what I hope to prove to you in the next 45 minutes, is the consequences of being on the wrong side are becoming manifest. Let's continue. So what does it mean? What does it mean? Loka. So the Gemara continues on and says, Amar Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak, Loka olam hazeh olam haba. This world is not like the next world. Ha'olam hazeh, Hashem's name is nichtav b'yud kei, v'nikra be'alef dalet. We read it as Aleph Dalet Nun Yud. Yes, we don't read it as it's written. We read it as Amonai. Aval Olam Haba Kulo Ehad. What does that mean? His name will be one. Jewish people in the time of the Mashiach in the future are going to say Hashem's name when it's Yud Kei Vav Kei as it is written, not like Aleph Dalet Nun Yud. Okay? Now, what's the significance of that? We're going to have such a close relationship with Hashem, and we're going to be so less likely to make avonot, and we're going to be such a much purer level that we can say that name. In the time of the Talmud, in the time of the temple, who said that name? Once a year, Kohen Gadol would go into the Kodesh HaKodashim, and he would say that name. When people made berachot in the Bet HaMikdash, they would say that name because they were in a situation of such holiness and purity that they were able to say that name. Once you're outside the temple, you were not allowed to say that name, not even the Kohen and Gadol. Nowadays, we don't have a temple, but when we have the temple restored, not only are we going to be able to say Yud Kei Vav Kei in the temple, we're going to be able to say Yud Kei Vav Kei even when we're not in the temple, because that purity of spirit that we're going to have is going to be so great that we're going to be permitted to say that name. Savar Rava lemidrasha b'pirka. Rabbah wanted to teach the correct pronunciation of Yud Kei Vav Kei, because there's an argument. Okay, we don't say it, but what about for the purpose of teaching in chinuch? Is a person allowed to say Yud Kei Vav Kei in order to teach? Amale Hosava. When it says Hosava, it's usually Eliyahu Navi. It says when there's certain old man said, what did he say to him? The pasuk says le'alem ketiv. What's the pasuk? Le'alem. What does the word le'alem mean? To hide it. What's the pasuk? Rabbi Avina Rameh. Ketiv ze shemi le'olam, veze zichri le'dor dor. This is right before what it says about Amalek, right? Whose ultimate responsibility is it to destroy Amalek? Hashem's responsibility is to destroy Amalek. Baruch Hashem, Mordechai and Esther in that time, they destroyed the physical Amalek. But the spiritual Amalek is still very much here. And who's responsible for destroying spiritual Amalek? That is going to be Hashem. Ki yad al kes ya milchama ladonai Amalek midor dor. Aleph dal, not Aleph dal, milchama liyud kei vav kei midor dor. Which means Yud Kei Vav Kei is going to destroy Amalek and all people who represent the spirituality of Amalek. So this pasuk, what does it say? Zeh shemi le'olam. This is my name le'olam. But if you look at the Sefer Torah, it's Ayin Lamed Mem. It's not Ayin Vav Lamed Mem. So what does that mean? What is le'olam? It doesn't say le'olam. It really says le'alem, which means to hid it. This is my name that has to be hidden. There's this shmi ledor dor. So there's a time when the name of Hashem is hidden. That's the time we're in now. Yud Ke Vav Ke, the name is hidden. That name will no longer be hidden. And when that name is exposed to the world, Kamaim Layam Mechasim, what's going to happen then? The Jewish people were able to say Hashem's name as it is written. Okay. We see this in the prophets. The prophets in Zechariah chapter 9, verse number 23 says, Ko amar Adonai tzevaot. This is what Hashem said. Bayamim hahema, in those days, asher yachaziku asara anashim, 10 people, mikol leshonot hagoyim, from all of the languages of the Gentiles. How many languages are of the Gentiles classically? 70. 10 of each of the nations of the world, that's 700, 10 times 70. Vehechiziku bichnaf ish Yehudi, and they will grab onto the corner of the garment of a Jew. A Jewish man wears a specific garment that has how many corners? 4. 700 times 4, 2,800. Lemor. What are they going to say? Nelecha imachem. We want to go with you. Ki shamanu Elohim imachem. Because we heard that what? God is with you. This is the Zman of the Mashiach, clearly, when the Gentiles will recognize that the Jewish people carried the secret, carried the way to have a true relationship with God, despite the persecutions, despite the exiles, and despite the difficulties. And there will be many, many Gentiles that are going to want to partake of that. It's going on right now. Okay? It's happening now. Even in the land of Israel, just like the same place, you have people in Yerushalayim trying to convert Jews and become Christians. There are many, many Gentiles that are wanting to come and become Jews. Right, but exactly. But that movement, believe it or not, according to Rabbi Singer, made it because when they created this movement, now Christians also have to identify what this movement is. And if you think about it, that movement is more of an original Christianity than Catholicism and Protestantism. And the more they whittle away the garbage that was added on afterwards, what's the source? They get to Judaism. And they realize that they inherited lies from their fathers. As we have another pasuk that says, next week's parasha, Be'ezat Hashem, parasha Pechukotai. What does it say? In Jeremiah chapter 31, verse number 7. Ki ko amar Adonai, ronu Yaakov simcha. I want to pay attention to that word, ronu. Ronu le'Yaakov simcha. What is ronu le'Yaakov simcha? From the word rina. What is rina? It's more than happiness. It's almost like ecstasy, joy. There's simcha and there's rina. Rina is a level above simcha. Simcha means ronu b'simcha. V'tzahalu berosh hagoyim, and shout for on the hilltops of the mountains for the Gentiles to hear. Hashmiu halelu ve'amiru. Say Hashem, what? Say to the nations, announce, praise, which means we're going to be praising Hashem. Okay, we're going to see what we're going to be praising Hashem for shortly. Ve'amru hosha Adonai et amecha et she'erit Yisrael. That Hashem saved his nation. What's she'erit Yisrael? What does the word she'erit Yisrael mean? In English, it's translated as the remnant of Israel, which means not all of Israel is going to make it for 2,500 years or 3,000 years. We're going to lose, unfortunately, many Israel along the way through conversion, through intermarriage, and things like that. Correct, but there's going to be a remnant, a small remnant, which is what we have today. That remnant is going to sing praise to Hashem. Why? Because Hashem preserved the remnant, which of course he's done. Baruch Hashem, we see. I'm going to bring them from the northland, the kibatzti mi'arketei, and I'm going to gather them from the corners of the world. Bam iveru piseach, the blind and the lame, which means people who are sick and people who are damaged. Hara v'yoledet, the pregnant woman and the woman who's just given birth. Yahdav, together. Kahal gadol yashuvu henna. Where is henna? Israel. What's been going on over the past 60, 70 years? Exactly what this pasuk is saying. Bifchi yavo, they will come crying, because unfortunately some of our people had to come to the land of Israel under difficult circumstances. So they're going to come crying. Ubitahanunim obilem, and through tahanunim I will lead them, I will guide them. Olichem el nahale mayim, I will guide them through rivers of waters. Bederach yashar, in a straight way. Lo yikashiluba, they will not fail, they will not stumble. Ki hayiti liYisrael av, because I was for the Jewish people as a father. The Ephraim bechorihu, and Ephraim is my firstborn. Then continuing on, what does it say? Shim'u devar Adonai goyim, listen to the words of God, O you nations. Ve'agidu ba'im memechak, and declare it in the isles that are far off. Baruch Hashem, with the internet now, that is not difficult. Ve'imru mezareh Yisrael yekabetzenu, he gathered the Jewish people together. Ushmaro kero'eh edyo, and he guarded them like a shepherd guards his flocks. Kifada Adonai Yaakov ugalo miad hazak mimenu, because God redeemed Jacob, and he rescued him, ransomed him from someone who was stronger. Of course, that's being the nations. And then, if you look a couple of pesukim later, what does it say? Adonai uzi ma'uzi uminusi biyom tzara. Yud Kei Vav Kei, my strength and my stronghold, my refuge in the day of difficulty. Elecha goyim yavo, to you Gentiles will come. Me'afsei aretz, from the corners of the world. The yomru ach sheker nahalu avotenu, our fathers gave us lies. Hevel ve'en ba mo'il, nonsense that has no value. Which means we see clearly that the prophet Yirmiyah, and he's not the only one, is mentioning that in the time of the Mashiach, what's going to stimulate the Gentiles to wake up and realize that it's not what they thought? The Jewish people returning back to the land of Israel, the Jewish people surviving difficult persecutions, Holocaust, October 7th. This is what's going to make them wake up and realize what? That it's not like they thought. And they inherited lies from their fathers.
But there is also a cute miracle that happened now.
What? We're getting there. This class was up until October 7th. Actually, until last year. Wait. This, I could have given this class 2 years ago. It would have been the same thing. I could have given this 10 years ago. Okay? Here's the point. And Shir HaMa'alot, this is in Psalms chapter 126. Beshuv Adonai et Shivat Sion hayinu ke'olemim. When Hashem returns back to Zion or returns to captivity, we were like men in a dream. We were like dreaming. We couldn't believe it. It was almost unbelievable. Then it says, Az yimales chok pinu ushonenu rimna. Meaning what? Then our mouths will be filled of laughter, and our tongue will be with rina, with ecstasy. Now, of course, we learn from here that there's a halakha that a person is not allowed to music and drink wine, okay, together, live music, unless it's a simha, some type of seudat mitzvah. Why? Because it says, Az yimales chok pinu. What is az? Then, not now. When the Jewish people are in exile, when the Jewish people have not realized the redemption, they're not allowed to have schok. They're not allowed to have happiness except through the performance of mitzvot. What are you happy about? The temple's in ruins, yes? But there comes a point in time when the redemption is happening. Now, unless it happens instantaneously, then it's no problem. But from the way it appears over the past 60, 70 years, it's not happening instantaneously. It's happening over the course of time. Yes? And unfortunately, our people have been gotten very, very good at saying Tehillim when bad things happen. We've almost become professionals at it. Right? But here's the question. At what point do we have to transition? And that doesn't mean we don't say Tehillim. What makes Gog and Magog so difficult? Because on the one hand, you're mourning for something that's happening, and on the other hand, something else is happening that's ecstatic. And it's hard to go back and forth. Should we be sad? Should we be happy? I know on the holidays, some people are trying to figure out, how do we say Hallel on the holidays when we have soldiers fighting, when we have captives? This is that's why there are rabbis in the Talmud that said, I don't want to live in the time of Gog and Magog. I'd rather not see the Mashiach. I'll come in the Tchiyat HaMetim. Let me bypass this whole situation. Okay? But we are not given that choice. What makes Gog and Magog difficult is this duality. On the one hand, we're mourning for difficult things that are happening, hearing bad news, soldiers dying, soldiers, all that kind of. And on the other hand, we're hearing unbelievable things. There has to come some point where we're going to say, yes, we're going to say Tehillim to save people who are in difficulty, but we also have to say Tehillim. We also have to sing when Hashem does a miracle for us. When Hashem, because little by little, these miracles are going to be increase in frequency. Then the pasuk says, "Az yomru bagoyim higdil Adonai la'asot imele." Then what are the Gentiles going to say? As higdil Adonai la'asot imele. Who cares what the Gentiles are saying? Why does it make a difference what the Gentiles are saying? Which means we already know they're going to realize they were wrong, but they're going to realize they're wrong. And what are they going to say? Hashem really did good by you. Why can they say it better than us? No, that's not what's happening here. They're not leaving us alone. They're going to want to join us. When they're going to be coming to join us and they want to learn from us, they're going to tell us, they're going to say, Higdil Adonai la'asot nitchem. Hashem really did unbelievable with you. But they're going to learn from us. Why do they have to say that? Why can they say it better than us? It's more than that. Let's think about Parashat Balak. Parashat Balak, yes? How does it start? Balak hires Bilam to curse Am Yisrael. He builds 3 mizbachot 3 different times. 3 different times, Bilam tries to curse them and he gives them beracha. Yes? While this is going on, what do the Jewish people know about it? Nothing. When did Moshe Rabbeinu find out about it? When Hashem said to him, by the way, let me just tell you what just happened in the mountains. You weren't aware of this while it was going on. Let me just fill you in. Boom, 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 boom. And you can imagine Moshe Rabbeinu was like, now Moshe's a prophet. Only the Gentiles know what they were plotting and planning against us. When their plans were overturned, all we know is the things that Hashem saves us, and we see it with our eyes when they try to hurt us and we're saved. But we don't realize how many times they try to hurt us and their plans are foiled. That's why they will be able to say, you know what, you only know about this time we wanted to kill you, but you don't know about this time and this time and this time and this time. And that's going to be their teshuvah, shall we say. They're going to recognize that Hashem was foiling their plans all along. And that's why it says, Higdil Adonai la'asot imele, that Hashem did amazing with them. Only the Gentiles will be able to say that because only they will know the full story. Higdil Adonai la'asot imanu, then we're going to say, Hayinu smechim. So we see there's a situation where we have to go from a point of exile to a point of redemption. Okay. I think if we look back, of course, October 7th was a tremendous tragedy for Am Yisrael. What happened soon after that? Okay, correct. That unity, by the way, is very, very important because that's what's going to bring the Mashiach. That's the teshuvah. That's part of the teshuvah. If you remember, on the 29th of Kislev, in the middle of Hanukkah, day number 5, there was a Rasha in the Turkish parliament who was speaking against the Jewish people on video. And we had the zchut to watch as he's saying these terrible things in Turkish. He dies on the spot. Or he had a heart attack, he had a whatever, and he didn't make it. Drop dead. And that was throughout I got this, believe it or not, this is from the U.S. News. This was seen everywhere. Now that's very subtle. Is it a coincidence? You know, a person could have said to himself when the blood came and the first plague hit the Gentiles in Egypt, it was just a coincidence. Maybe there's a Red Sea, there's all kinds of red algae that could have come with explanations. So this we say, okay, maybe, I mean, it's amazing. Just as he's talking, he dies. That's no coincidence. First of all, we don't believe in coincidence. A coincidence to a Jew is apikorsut. There is no coincidence. Everything happens hashgacha prati. Wait. We're getting there. Okay? And just to mention this Rasha's name, okay? His name was Bitmez. Shem Resha'im Yirkav. May he burn where he needs to go. Next thing we hopefully appreciated is that when Iran sent 300 missiles, okay, 300 different kinds, and this article here is basically an article in the Iranian International trying to understand and trying to explain how Israel was able to defend itself against 300 rockets. And these are not like the rockets in Hamas, and these are more significant. These are serious situations, yes? And they're trying, this happened on the 5th of Nisan, which was not too long ago. And they're trying to figure out how it is, right? Of course, this is the international Iranian news because the local Iranian news can't cover this. But the international Iranian, because what are they realizing? Hey, this is the first time that Iran, who is clearly the sponsor of all the terrorism that's going on in the Middle East, attacked Israel directly. And what happened? Nothing. Did we appreciate this Yeshua from Hashem? And how are we supposed to appreciate this Yeshua from Hashem? And then, of course, most recently, we have one of the Rishaim that died yesterday. So we all know about the first guy, okay, the number 2 in Iran who was being groomed to take over for the Ayatollah, Shem Rishaim Yerkav, when God decides at 85 years old he's had enough and takes him away. The second in command, who was the one Raisi, who was supposed to take over, Shem Rishaim Yerkav, and what happens? He's dead. But what about the foreign minister? The foreign minister, in the 19th of Nisan, Shabbat Hola Moed Pesach, what does he say? He basically says the Zionist regime is on path of decline and destruction. There are no coincidences in the world. And of course, we heard the wonderful news about Ibrahim Raisi, Shem Rishaim Yerkav, and his whole entourage over there. We should have done this class yesterday, but we couldn't get confirmation that the guy was dead. I guess in Iranian, the translation of hard landing and crash landing are very, very different, okay? But we have a very clear idea that this was not going to work out well for them. And Baruch Hashem. And what do we see from this? This is 3 or 4 weeks after. When did they send the missiles? 3 or 4 weeks ago? A month ago? How short a period of time. And now the leadership of this country is dead. Now, aside from that jubilation that all of us have to have, okay? Now imagine you are a Muslim in Iran, and you're not a Muslim who wants the regime to go. You want one of the ones who are lighting firecrackers when you heard that his helicopter crashed. His American helicopter crashed, okay? They have a problem. Let's think about that. They're talking about how they're going to destroy the Zionist entity. They're going to destroy Israel. And whatever they told them, it clearly wasn't, because I'm sure some of them are able to get news from the outside. Okay? They know it wasn't the big deal that everybody thought it was going to be. And then their entire leadership dies 5 weeks later.
Wait, what about the guy that was supposed to kidnap to hang, and everybody was cursing the government of Iran?
Unfortunately, he's not out of the woods yet. He's still get a month of reprieve. We'll see what happens with that. 100%. We have to thank Hashem for that. We have to thank, but we recognize that tefillot that we do, the tehillim that we do, are very important, because look what they do. They can change the decree of this young man who was supposed to die on Shabbat, and this young man now gets to see that the people who wanted to kill him are actually dead themselves, okay? But once again, we have to remember, we have to work on changing this built-in that we only say Tehillim when things bad happen. Because we have a pasuk in Mishlei, chapter 11, verse number 10. Betov tzadikim ta'alos kiryah. When things go well with the tzadikim, with the righteous, what does that mean? It's good for the city. Uba'avod resha'im rinna. And when the wicked are destroyed, the wicked are killed, it's rina. What is rina? Jubilation, excitement, ecstasy. Do we appreciate every single time one of these Rishaim dies, whether it's a Hamas guy, whether it's a Hezbollah guy, are we also singing for that to happen? And why is that so important? Why is that so important? First of all, we have an example of this in the Tanakh. We have a clear example in the Tanakh. And then the other one I'm going to bring is from the Gemara. In the Tanakh, what does it say? In Melachim Aleph, chapter 22, verse number 36, it says, Vaya'avor harina b'mahaneh. When the king Ahav ben Omri died. When Ahav, who was Rasha Gadol, died, they had rina, they had song. And we see clearly that the Tanakh tells us that happened. We also have another situation. That it says that when Hashem was about to destroy Mitzrayim in the Yam Suf, yes? It says, V'lo karav zeh zeh kol halayla. The pasuk says in Shemot 14, verse number 20. Be'otasha, in that hour, bikshu malachei hasheret lomar shira. The angels wanted to sing a song. Hakadosh lifnei Hakadosh Baruch Hu. They wanted to sing a song before Hashem. Amar lahen Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem said, Ma'aseh adai toveim bayam v'atem omrim shira lefanai. You're going to sing. From here, we might understand what? That a person shouldn't sing, right? We see another example where the pasuk says that when we're not going to behave ourselves in Kitavo, it says Hashem, just like Hashem was happy when we were doing well, it says Yasus, which means, Yasus, it doesn't say, it says Yasis, meaning what? He's going to cause other people to be happy, but he's not going to be happy. So we have another example where Hashem causes the Gentiles to be happy when we are falling, but Hashem is not happy. So we see from here that angels are not allowed to be happy when the wicked are destroyed. Why not? Because they weren't tested. They weren't the ones who were experiencing the wickedness. Okay? They weren't the ones who were slaves. So therefore, why are you singing? You weren't slaves in Egypt. Even Hashem is not singing when the wicked die. What does that mean? Who's left to sing when the wicked die? That's right. We have to sing. Hashem is not singing, even though he wants to, he's not singing. And the angels are not allowed to sing. We have to sing when the wicked die. And we have an example, unfortunately, of a great king. His name was Hizkiah. And the Gemara says in Masechet Sanhedrin in Perichelek that Hizkiah was worthy to be Mashiach. Why? He caused tremendous teshuvah, destroyed all the avodah zarah of the idol worshipping of his father. All the children, by the time they were 6 years old, knew all of Mishnayot, Taharot in the time of Hizkiah. And what happened? Sancheriv's army already exiled the 10 tribes. And Sancheriv's army already had destroyed 45 cities in Yehudah. Tremendous difficulty, yes? And what happened? They surrounded Jerusalem. And this is Erev Pesach, and Chizkiyahu says, you know what? I don't know how to fight. I'm not like my grandfather David. You fight, and I'm going to go to sleep. This is Erev Pesach. And he wakes up in the morning, and what happens? They're all dead. 180,000 soldiers. Some say it's 180,000 captains. It says the angels came and sang in their ears. Why wasn't Hizkiah Ra'ui to be the Mashiach?
Because he didn't want to have children.
Because what did they say? No. The Malachim and the Shamayim, Malachei Din said, David HaMelech, who wasn't the ultimate Mashiach, wrote all these songs and sang all these songs. You did this amazing miracle for Hizkiyahu. And he didn't sing. So we see a quality, and that was the last opportunity for redemption. Because after Hizkiah came Menashe, and Menashe, because of all the rishut that he did and all the things that he did, that was what made the Bet HaMikdash going to be destroyed no matter what. Hizkiah was that last chance. And how did he lose that last chance? because he couldn't find it himself to sing. And it doesn't mean he has to be a poet. Maybe David HaMelech was a poet. Chizkiyahu's not a poet. But at least he should have taken some of the poetry or some of the songs that already existed. And he should have sung when Sanherib's army was destroyed. Because he couldn't do that, because he didn't do that, what happens? The Gemara says he is not worthy to be the Mashiach. And that was the last opportunity for the first temple to stay standing. Anyway, we see another example of this. When Yitro comes, what does he hear? What does Yitro hear? Yitro hears his machloket. Did he hear about Kriyat Yamsuf? Did he hear about Matan Torah? But whatever he heard, he came, right? He came. And what does he do? What does he say? Vayichad Yitro. Rabbu Shmuel, Rav Amar She'evir Herev Hadal Besaro. That what he did, Brit Milah. As soon as he heard all these things happening, what did Yitro writer want to do? He wants to convert. He wants to become a Jew. Or another, Shmuel said, hadudim, that all of his flesh became trembling when he heard the story directly. Now, then what does it say? Vayseper Moshe lechoteno. Moshe Rabbeinu told his father-in-law, Et kol asher asa Adonai leFaro Mitzrayim, al odot Yisrael, on behalf of the Jewish people. Et kol atila Hashem etzaatam baderech, all the difficulties, all the troubles, all the things that happened to them on the way. Vayatzilem Adonai, and Hashem saved them. Vayichad Yitro al kol atova asher asa Adonai leYisrael. Yitro, Vayichad Yitro, asher hitzilo miyam Mitzrayim. So Yitro recognized that the Jewish people were saved from Egypt. Vayomer Yitro, what does Yitro say? Baruch Adonai asher hitzil etchem miyad Mitzrayim miyad Paro asher hitzil et ha'am mitachat yad Mitzrayim. He said, Baruch Hashem. Yes? And then, of course, he says, Ata yadati ki gadol Adonai mikol ha'elohim ki badavar shezadu alehem. So Yitro over here is undergoing a conversion process. He's realizing that everything he had before was lies, and he's coming. This is similar to what we said from Zechariah, that the Gentiles will recognize they inherited lies from their fathers. What does the Gemara say about the bracha? What does it say over there? It criticizes Moshe Rabbeinu. Because Yitro made bracha. Moshe Rabbeinu never said Baruch Hashem. So we understand that we have to have a way not only to sing song, because Moshe sang a song, but he didn't say Baruch Hashem. What's that? First of all, there's a very simple pasuk you could say. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen. It's a whole pasuk in Tehillim, chapter 89, verse number 53. And a person can say that. So every time something happens, you say Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen. A person's allowed to say Hashem's name if you say a whole pasuk. We see this also in another place. It says, beginning, Vayhi bayamim harabim ahem. It was in those many days. Vayamot melech Mitzrayim, and the king of Egypt died. Vayanhu b'neisa min ha'avodah vayiz'aku, and the Jewish people sighed from the work. Vayiz'aku v'tal shavatam Elohim min ha'adama min ha'avodah, and the prayers of the Jewish people went to Hashem because of the avodah. What does this mean? So the simple meaning is they groaned about the work they were doing. Excuse me, they were groaning about the work all the time. What's here different? Didn't say that, right? Okay, but what's different here? Why vayiz'aku? So the simple answer is, since Paro died, all of Egypt was crying out. So if the Jewish people were crying out also, the Egyptians would think they're crying out because Paro died. They're not. They're crying out because of the avodah. If they're crying out the rest of it, well, you don't appreciate, we give you all this kind of stuff, right? So it'd be a lack of appreciation. So it's like the dual loyalty situation. How can I say I'm happy when I can't say I'm happy that the king of Egypt died, and I can't say I'm very miserable with the work I'm doing. Thank you so much for giving me this work to do. But the Orach Chaim says something else. He says, when you look, it says, Vaye'anehu v'ta'al shav'atam. The word shav'ah is tefillah. What does that mean? A sigh of work is not tefillah. Orach Chaim says that over here, what did they do? They cried out from the difficulties of the work, and that was their avodah. Meaning what? They wanted Hashem to save them. They recognize that we cannot do it. It's not the fact that we're working as slaves. We cannot do it ourselves. That's the difference in by tzeaka and zeaka. When a person uses zeaka, what does that mean? I have no role here. All I can do is pray. Hashem yilachem lachem ve'atem taharishun. This was the necessary step. The problem we make, unfortunately, sometimes we think it's because of Tzahal, it's because of the Mossad, it's because of this. Exactly. And you know what? Listen, a person has to recognize and give appreciation for people who are risking their lives to defend Am Yisrael. But for no way should we think for 1 minute that the Yeshua is coming because of Tzahal. The Yeshua is coming because of Hashem. Tzahal is only the tool. That's the mistake. That was also making 73. Yes? Mistake what they made from 67, where they all thought it was us. And remember what I said from the beginning of the class. Why are we in the land of Israel? Liot am chofshi be'atzenu? Is that really? But that's not what it says. The original stanzas are not Liot am chofshi be'atzenu. La shuv la'eretz avotenu. Those are the original stanzas. That's the original words from there. What do you mean? Lashuv le'eretz avotenu. That's the key. It has nothing to do with am chofshi be'artzenu. That's nonsense. That's a very socialist idea. That's a very politically correct idea from the mid-1900s. The reason we're there is not because we want to be free and have rules like we would. No, we're there because Hashem, this is the land that was promised to us by Hashem. And hopefully over the course of time, because part of the difficulties that are going on right now, okay, certainly in the land of Israel, is people have to realize it's easier just to live someplace else. Why is that your home? Because Theodore Herzl decided that Uganda was too hot? Is that the reason why? No, it's Eretz Avotenu. We have to go back to the roots. The reason we're there is because this is what Hashem promised. Remember the Pesukim I brought to show? The Goyim are going to recognize we went back to the land of Israel, not because we were an oppressed nation looking to be free in the world. No, we're going back to the land of Israel because these are the promises that were made in the Tanakh.
It's almost ironic that we are the only one that have our fathers buried there. We're the only one that they tell us that it's not our land. It's ridiculous.
Part of the problem is because not enough of us believe that it's our land. If more Jews believed this is our land, there would be no argument. There would be no discussion. We give the pitchon pela satan. We allow this idea, like this two-state solution idea. Hopefully, at least we've realized by this point, even some of the lefties realize that that's not really a solution. That's not a solution. That's a two-state continuance, okay? No, the solution is no two-state. There's no two states. They've given up their ability to have a state. They don't deserve a state. That's it. They're done. Okay? And the more Jews have that idea, no, we're not giving up an inch of our land. Perhaps we could say the mistake of 2005. We uprooted Jewish communities out of our land. Why would we have done something like that?
What happened to the...
Right? So we have to recognize that we appreciate, again, I can't because I'm not living there. I didn't make the political decisions there. So we understand that worshiping Hashem, it says, Ivdu et Adonai be'yir'ah ve'chilu bir'adah. Serve Hashem with fear and rejoice with trepidation, with trembling. That's pasuk, that's in Psalms chapter 3, verse number 11. But we have another pasuk, in Mizmor leTodah. Ivdu et Adonai be'simcha bo lefanav bir'nana. They seem to be contrasting one to another. They seem to have difficulty with each other. The Midrash makes the contrast and says the first pasuk, that's for the Gentiles. First pasuk is for the Gentiles. They have yir'ah. They have to have yir'ah. But the Jewish people, that's the second pasuk. Mizmor leTodah, that's for the Jewish people. How do we serve Hashem? What is the service of Hashem? How do we thank Hashem when He does something amazing for us? Bo'u lefanav birnana. We have to come before Him with singing. And that singing has to involve praising Hashem. As we read at the end, come to His gates with todah, hatzerotav bitila, to his sha'ar with praise, hodu lo baruchu shemo. This is what the singing that we have to do when miracles like this happen for us. Okay. So what are we supposed to sing? What are we supposed to do? So it says, what is Shirah? When it says Chizkiyahu didn't sing Shirah, what does that mean? What's Shirah? Okay, but what's Shirah? When you look at the Mishnah or the Gemara, when it says Shirah, what is that referring to? Referring to Hallel or Tehillim. Shirah is Hallel. So here's the problem. Chizkiyahu, when did this happen? Whoa. When it says Shirah, it's not saying Shirah. Shirah, the generic term, is Hallel. I should. When it says Chizkiyahu, I'm trying to understand, when Chizkiyahu, it says he didn't sing Shirah, what Shirah didn't he sing? You want to say he didn't sing Hallel? Yes, you could say the simple meaning he didn't say Hallel. Maybe he wasn't a poet himself, so he couldn't write his own song. So Baruch Hashem, he has David HaMelech, so he should use the song Psalms of David. Yes. But wait a minute. When did this happen? When did this miracle happen with Sancheriv? The first day of Pesach. What do we do on the first day of Pesach? We say Hallel. Remember, the formal tefillah wasn't in place yet. The Shmona Esrei tefillah wasn't until the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, which is the building of the second temple. So there was really no formal prayer service for people. Everybody prayed on their own. But we have a mitzvah to say Hallel on Pesach. We say it at night with a beracha, and we say it in the day with a beracha. So I'm suggesting that over here, what Shirah didn't he sing? It wasn't Hallel. He did say Hallel. What Shirah should he have said? Shirat Hayam. Why Shirat Hayam specifically? Okay, well, maybe. Why should we sing Shirat Hayam?
For like a miracle, like big miracle, like Parnasa.
He can say there's many other shirim to sing. Why Dafka Shirat Hayam? Meaning what?
After a miracle.
In the future.
Oh, it doesn't say Az Sharu Moshe B'nai Israel. Az Yashir. Yashir means future. One of the proof texts that the Gemara brings for the Tichat HaMetimus from the Torah is Az Yashir. So it says in Bereshit chapter 49, verse number 10, Lo yasu shevet miyuda umchokek mi ben raglav ad ki yavo Shilo velo yikehat amim. Yes? The staff shall not depart from Yehuda, nor the scepter from between his feet, until Shiloh comes and the obedience of the people be his. What is Shiloh? No, that's Shelah.
Shiloh is one of the names of Mashiach.
Let's go deeper. What is Shiloh? Who is Shiloh? We have a Shiloh in the shul over here. Okay. What is Shiloh? Ad, look at the pasuk. Loya, the scepter will not depart from Judah, which means Judah will always have someone. What is the scepter? That's for Melech, which means Judah, Yehudah will always have somebody ra'ui to be Mashiach in every generation. Every generation, there is someone who is born, who is a descendant of Yehudah that is worthy to be Mashiach. And why is he not the Mashiach? For the same reason Chizkiyahu is not the Mashiach, because the generation wasn't worthy. Ad ki yavo Shiloh. What is Shiloh? What is the difference between someone who is worthy to be the Mashiach and someone who is the Mashiach? So we understand from the Rambam, he builds the temple, he gathers the Jewish people and he fights the wars of God. He has to do those things. Before that, he's a Mashiach candidate. When he performs those three things, now he's the Mashiach. I'm asking from a spiritual point of view. At what point does this person, this individual who's descended from David HaMelech, become the Mashiach? Ad ki yavo Shiloh. The Zohar says, what is Shiloh? Moshe. What's the gematria of Shiloh? 345. What's the gematria of Moshe? 345. When does he become the Mashiach? When he's infused with the neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? First and foremost, Moshe Rabbeinu made a big mistake. What was his big mistake? He allowed the Erev Rav to come in. The Zohar talks about the fact that Moshe is responsible because he brought the Erev Rav in the beginning. Moshe Rabbeinu has to remove the Erev Rav at the end. Another reason, why wasn't Moshe allowed to go into the land of Israel? He can't make teshuvah. What? Teshuvah is removed from Moshe Rabbeinu? He's not allowed to make teshuvah. The only Jew in the history of the world that's not allowed to make teshuvah is Moshe Rabbeinu? And they don't have teshuvah?
No, because if he was in Israel, he would never destroy the temple. Correct.
Moshe Rabbeinu, ultimately his neshama is the neshama of the Mashiach. When this Vayet Hanan el Adonai Vayet Helimor, what is he praying for? The name of Hashem over there is Aleph Daled Nun Yud, Yud Kei Vav Kei, read as Elohim. That's a very unique form of Hashem's name. When you see that, that's talking about the resurrection. That's talking about the future, the Messianic age. What is Moshe asking? You know what? We've been through a lot already. The Jews died in the desert. We come to new generations. Let me go in. Let the Mashiach come now. Let me be that Mashiach. That's what Hashem says, no. No. Because why? They're not ready. They're not ready. So it wasn't the punishment. I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu could have done teshuvah. And that's why Hashem said to him, don't pray anymore, stop. And that's why he stopped praying. We're not supposed to stop praying. Hashem told him to stop, and he stopped. Why? Because Moshe realized it wasn't good for them. But we understand who's the Mashiach. Yes, a descendant of David HaMelech. And he has a neshama that he's born with, that he gets from his father and his mother and Hashem. But what makes the Mashiach? He gets the neshama Moshe Rabbeinu. Ad ki yavo Shiloh. That's what the Zohar says. Now we understand why Shirat Hayam is what you have to sing. Az Yashir Moshe. What is Az? Then we'll sing. Mashiach. Why is Chizkiyahu not the Mashiach? Why? Oh, I'm going to ask it a different way. Why didn't Chizkiyahu get infused with the neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu? Because he didn't sing Shirat Hayam. Chizkiyahu, when Sancheri's army was destroyed, he said Hallel because he's a Jew. He has to say Hallel on Pesach. Shirat Hayam, that's only later. Pesukei de Zimra is later. He didn't sing Shirat Hayam. And that's my drasha. You can ask questions all you want, but I think, given what we're saying, Ad ki yavo Shiloh, Mashiach is Moshe Rabbeinu. Why is the soul of Moshe Rabbeinu the Mashiach? Because that's what when he sings the song Shirat Hayam, that's what it'll ask. So what am I saying here? Okay? And the Zohar brings this also, Mez Az Yashir Moshe, and it says this is the song that we're going to sing in the future that's going to turn. It's Lehit Aneg al Hashem. What is Lehit Aneg al Hashem? What is Oneg? Eden, Nahar, and Gan. The Nahar Yotze Me'eden Lahashkot et Hagan. That's what Oneg is. When we're not properly behaving, what do we have instead of Oneg? Nega. Which means it's reversed. What we want to do is Shfocha Matchala Gom Misholul Da'ucha. We want the Nega to go to them. We want the Oneg. That's why Lit Aneg al Hashem. What is Lit Aneg al Hashem? It's al Hashem. What does it mean al Hashem? Have oneg to such a level. How are we going to have that oneg? When we're singing Shirat Hayam, when we're able to appreciate the miracles that happen for us in our day today, and we can actually sing Shirat Hayam. And we have to fulfill, the Zohar says, the Sulam explains, we have to fulfill this idea of singing this song. Now, if a person wants to sing Hallel, Kol HaKavod, no problem, okay? But I think there's an inyan for Shirat Hayam. And when we see something like happened yesterday, we found out today, okay? I think it's important that we heard this wonderful, wonderful news that the president of Iran and all his entourage over there, all these Rishaim died in one day, 4 or 5 weeks after they launched the greatest missile barrage from Iran ever before. How are we not singing Shirat Hayam? Ba'avod Rishaim Minah. But 100%.
Now we have to sing it.
Let's.
But if we sing it in Shacharit, I sing it in Shacharit every day.
Did you sing it?
Of course.
Okay.
Excuse me. No, but it's Shacharit. But also there is the Yin Shacharit.
But did we think when we're singing Az Yashir, did we have in mind that what happened yesterday? Happened to what we found out today that happened yesterday, right? We're in the tefillah. It's something we're doing every single day. We have to tie it to what happened, because a person has to sing shira over the miracles that they sing in their own life. Anyone who doesn't see that's a miracle is surely mistaken. Absolutely.
This is absolutely miracle.
Especially after I cursed them on Shabbat because of this poor with this kid. It was in my head.
100%. All right, so we'll stop the class here because we have a minha in 10 minutes. What I'd like to do with everybody's permission is, since I just said we have to sing Shirat Hayam, and Baruch Adonai Olam Amen V'Amen. Since we have to sing Shirat Hayam, maybe I'll sing with it. Can you read me a Siddur? Uba'avod Rishayim Rina, the exact opposite. Pum fakert.
Tehillim, it says.
Proverbs.
What it says?
Bin pol oivecha. Which oyev? Which oyim? Oivim. Jews. We're not supposed to be happy when Jewish people are not behaving properly. Gentiles? But I brought a source from the Tanakh. They were very happy when Achav ben Omri died. It says they sang Rina when he died. So we have to look into that and see how they got by that pasuk. Okay, so let's. So in the Siddur, it's on page. Okay, here we go. Page 101. All right, we have 5 minutes, and then you're going to do a Patah Aliyah. ויושע אדוני ביום ההוא את ישראל מהמצרים, וירא ישראל את מצרים מת על שפת הים, וירא ישראל את היד הגדולה שעשה אדוני במצרים, וייראו העם את אדוני, ויאמינו באדוני ובמשה עבדו. ותטעמי המקרא, אז ישיר משה ובני ישראל את השירה הזאת אדוני, ויאמרו לאמור, השיר על אדוני כי גאו גאה סוס ורוכבו, רמה בים עוזי וזמרתיה, ויהי לי לישועה, זה אלי בענווהו אלוהי אבי, וארום ממנו אדוני איש מלחמה, אדוני שמו, מרכבות פרעה וחילו ירה בים, ובחל שרישיו טובעו בים סוף, תאומות יחציומו, ירדו במסולות כמו אבן, ימינך אדוני נדרי בכוח, ימינך אדוני תרעץ אויב, וברוב גאונך תרוס קמך תשלח, חרונך יאכל עמו כקש, וברוח אפיך נערו מים, נסבו כמו נד נוזלים, כפו תהומו בלב ים, אמר אוריה ברדוף אסי, יחלק שלל, תימאמו נפשי, יריח בי תורי שמו, ידי נשף רוחך, כי שמו ים, צללו כעופרת במים אדירים, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נטית ימינך תבלע עמו ארץ, נחית בחסדך, עמזו גאלת, נהרת בעוזך, נווה קודשך, שמו עמי מרגזון, חיל אחז יושבי פלשת, אז נבהלו אלופי דום, אלה מואב, יוחזה מורעד, נמוגו כל יושבי חנן, תיפול עליהם מטה ופחד, בגדרו זרועך ידמו כאבן, עד יעבור עמך אדוני, עד יעבור עמזו קניתה, תביאמו ותתאמו מהנחלתך מכון לשבטך, פעלת אדוני מקדש אדוני, כוננו ידיך אדוני, ימלוך לעולם ועד. כי בא סוס פרעה ברכבו פרשה בים, וישב אדוני עליהם את מי הים, ובני ישראל הבלכו ביבשה בתוך הים. We don't want to leave the ladies out. ותיקח מרים הנביאה אחות אהרון את התוף בידה, ותשאנה כל הנשים אחריה בתופים ובמחולות, ותען להם מרים, שירו לאדוני כי גאוגה, סוס רוכבו רמה בים. May Hashem continue to do Nesim and Niflot to Am Yisrael. Baruch Adonai Olam, amen ve'amen. I know, that's why we're doing it here.